What is up, guys? Top Tier Yu-Gi-Oh here, and today I just wanted to have a quick little banlist discussion with you guys and just sort of discuss some of the problems that I think we have in this current metagame and discuss how Konami can potentially fix that on the upcoming ban list. And I don't want to I hope that Konami doesn't murder these decks, and just ban all of their important cards, but I do think that we have problems that can be solved if they're handled appropriately. And so I'm definitely interested in what you guys have to say as well, and so feel free to leave comments if there's anything you would like to say. But I do want to give you guys a fair warning, there's not going to be anything interesting on the screen, and so feel free to just play this in the background or something if you would like, but there's not going to be anything interesting, just a couple of cards. Maybe I'll draw some hands with some deck I have laying around, but nothing interesting is going to be on the screen. But also I am testing out a new microphone, so I'm curious what you guys think about the audio, and so let me know how the audio sounds to you. I mean, the clarity and the quality of the sound, let me know what you think, and if it does sound good, this might be something I continue using, because I do kind of like this shot. It's like an overhead type of rig that I think could be useful for doing deck profiles and test hand videos, because you can see a lot more of the mat. It isn't as close up, and so that means I can kind of space things out a little bit more. They won't be as cramped on specific areas of the playmat, so I think it'll be helpful overall. So definitely hope this sounds better than the other microphone sounds good too, but hopefully this allows me to kind of be more dynamic in how I do those type of videos. So let me know what you guys think about the ban list, as well as what you think about the audio. So lots of things to comment about, so be sure to leave a comment. But let's go ahead and get into today's main discussion topic. And so I think there's really one main issue that I think we have in this current format. This one just kind of reaches to a lot of the top decks, and I think that issue comes down to the synchro summoning that's in every single top deck. And I don't think it's that the synchro summoning mechanic in general is the problem, but it's how it's happening and how it's the same in every single top deck. But if you consider the top 5 decks to be Adamanticators, Dragon Link, Noble Knight decks, Outlet, and then Invoked in some random order, then 4 out of those top 5 decks, Invoked being the one that doesn't use synchro summoning, 4 out of those top 5 decks use synchro summoning, and they all do it in the exact same way. They all kind of play through Needle Fiber, and they go through Link Cross. They use cards like Auroradon, Jet Synchron, O-Line. These are all the same in all of these decks, and I think that starts to become kind of problematic. But the question is, how can we fix this problem without kind of doing this in too heavy-handed of a way? And so I think we really have to discuss what is it that's broken? Is summoning a tuner, is that too good in this game? Is that the problem? Is it the tuner that gets summoned? Is it the Jet Synchron, or is it O-Lion? Are those the cards that are maybe problematic? Or is it the token generators like Link Cross, again O-Lion, and then Auroradon? Are those the problem? And so I think we really need to discuss what the problem in these decks is. What is broken and what isn't broken? What should be allowed in this game of Yu-Gi-Oh? And I think that given the trends that Konami has shown before with the bans of cards like Gofu, I think Grinder Golem might be banned, or it might be at 1, but Grinder Golem is another card. I think it is these token creators that becomes very problematic for us, because it's too easy to link them away. And even though these are synchro decks, the link plays is what enables them. So I think if we didn't have, for example, Link Cross or O-Lion, maybe it's harder to get to Auroradon, and that makes it harder to get to the Savage Dragon, the Herald, the Charles that they're summoning in Noble Knights. But you still want them to be able to do those things. You still want them to be able, or at least Noble Knights, I still think they should be able to play. And because they are still primarily a synchro deck, I think we still should keep a card like maybe Auroradon, because that is important for them to get to their synchro plays. But it's interesting to try to decide what to ban and what not to ban. I think for me personally, I think it comes down to Link Cross and O-Lion. I think those are both the main issues here. Those are what allow these decks to play through hand traps, and it's one of the reasons why we're seeing Nibiru not even being played, is because it's so easy to play through it. And for Adamanticators have different things, they don't really use these, but you look at a deck like Outlet, and they're able to play through a Nibiru because of O-Lion, or same with Noble Knights or Dragon Link, and that shouldn't be the case. And then in the case of Link Cross, it's they can easily play through an Ash, a Veiler, an Imperm, or something on the Needle Fiber and still end up getting more advantage, more pluses from it. And so again, I think that's something that we shouldn't or I mean, it's not that it's overly broken, but given the way things have gone so far, I think they're going to be the likely targets of a ban list. I think you want to keep a card like Needle Fiber in the game right now because it does other things aside from synchro comboing. I think Needle Fiber allows for a lot of decks to have access to cards like Access Code Talker. And so I think Needle Fiber being in the game is very important so that we have decks that are able to go like Needle Fiber, Selene, Access Code, and then have a way to just put some damage on board, because it's like it gives decks like Sky Strikers more of a chance, or decks like Salamangreat. And so I think I think we should keep Needle Fiber in the game just because of what it allows. Like it just does more. It's very useful for a lot of decks, even if they're not doing synchro plays or like the heavy synchro wombo combo plays. So I do think that Needle Fiber should stick around for a bit. And so I think if we're keeping Needle Fiber and we're keeping Auroradon, then of course Link Cross and O-Line have to go. Another thing that I think should maybe be touched upon on the list is Jet Synchron and or Tuning. Both of these cards are they just allow for too much. Like maybe one card, Needle Fibers, should not be as consistent as they are. And so I think that you maybe limit either Jet Synchron or Tuning depending on which one you think to be the problem. I think probably Jet Synchron you could potentially limit because it does banish itself as well, and so that means that your other tunings are going to be dead afterwards, and so it's going to make it a little less consistent, not as recurable. Whereas if you had 3 Jet Synchrons, 1 tuning, you still have 3 Jet Synchrons. And so I think they'll limit Jet Synchron potentially and then keep tuning at 3, because you do still have access to like Quick Draw Synchron as well, but it's obviously not as advantageous, so I think that would be more fair. So I think that'll be the route they go. So once again, to handle the synchro problem that I think we have in this current metagame, I believe that the best way to do it would be to limit the Link Cross, or I'm sorry, ban the Link Cross and then ban the O-Line as well, and then limit Jet Synchron. That's what I would personally do. Now, another issue that I think we have, well, this isn't really like a main issue, but I do think we need to be clear on what's allowed within this game, like what's broken, what's not broken. And I think there are a lot of cards in this game right now, in this current metagame, and in this format, that are really pushing the limits of what we should be considering fair or not. And I think the biggest one that a lot of people have been talking about is Block Dragon. And so I think we really need to discuss whether or not Block Dragon is going to be okay, because it's been around for a while, but it never really got broken until Adamantipator's. I mean, Block BA was a thing for a while, but that was just like a fringe deck, not consistent enough, not nearly consistent enough to be a viable deck in a format. And so I wonder if now, if we hurt the synchro problem, not hurt the synchro problem, but if we deal with the synchro problem, is Block Dragon still going to be a problem? Because if Adamantipator's aren't making their synchro plays, do they go back to like IP Masquerena, Appaloosa, and maybe like Dweller, like things like that? That's a lot easier to deal with than like Savage, Herald, and then everything else. And so I think it might be okay to leave, but I also think it'll not get banned, because I don't think that'll be necessary, but maybe semi-limiting or limiting it just to make that deck a little bit less consistent, because it's still good and they still can search it with both Union Carrier, they can search it with Gallant Granite, but I think that just reducing their consistency and drawing it is going to hurt them significantly. So I think that could be something we do to potentially just slow them down just a tiny little bit. Like we shouldn't murder them and they should still be a solid deck, but you know, just maybe slow them down just a little bit. And I think not getting rid of, but again, making it more difficult to make synchro plays will help, and then also lowering their consistency will help. With that, I also think that Eldritch should maybe be addressed, because if we hurt the synchro decks and not Eldritch can just take over. And while Eldritch is hurt by the synchro problems as well, I do think that maybe a card like Scarlet Sanguine should maybe be semi-limited, just to, again, lower the consistency just a teeny little bit, and then lower its ability to grind for as long as it can as well, just to give some other decks a chance. Because as it stands right now, the synchro engine gives Eldritch the ability to overpower a lot of lower tier decks. Like most tier 2, tier 3, and rogue decks cannot deal with Savage Dragon, Herald, Scarlet Conquistador. They just can't deal with that. And so maybe decreasing the odds of them having that Scarlet Conquistador setup on top of whatever their main play is, I think is actually really going to help a lot of other decks play against them. And maybe if they only have that some of the time, it beats having it as often as they do. And so I do think that a card like Scarlet could maybe be semi-limited, or even like a Cursed Outland, that could also be semi-limited, but I think Scarlet's going to be a big one here. Now, another card that I think sort of lays on the edge of fairness or not is Buster Dragon Destruction Sword. I think we also need to figure out whether or not this should be allowed in the game. Like, is it okay to lock opponents out of the extra deck like a one-sided kind of like a Vanity's Emptiness? Is that fine? Well, we have Domain of the Monarchs at 3, and that's okay, so why is this much worse? Is it only because the popular decks are using this right now and the popular decks aren't Monarchs? So like, what's the problem? Is it the problem? Is the deck that summons it the problem, or is Destruction Sword itself the problem? I think that's what we need to discuss. Or is it the card that allows us to use it, like Union Carrier? Is this the problem? And so I think, one, we need to determine whether or not it's fair for decks to just be slapping this on their inboard, or if it at all is fair. And so I think Buster Sword is something else that could potentially be banned, because maybe every Dark or Dragon deck should not have the ability to go into Union Carrier, equip a Destruction Sword, and then lock the opponent out of the extra deck. Like, it's one thing if only Monarchs can do it, maybe it's something else when every Dark or Dragon deck can. Like, I did this in a Thunder Dragon deck, which makes no sense. And so, well, I mean, it makes sense because they're dark, but, you know, like, archetype-wise, it's kind of ridiculous. So I think that's something else that could be addressed. Another option would be Smoke Grenade. I mean, looking at an opponent's hand and dealing with a card is obviously very powerful, and we have stuff like Triple Tactical Talents, which can do that. We have a Pointer of the Red Lotus, which can do it, but then at the same time, we have Trap Dust Shoot, which is banned. And so it's like, is it how generic it is that makes it broken, or that makes it so that it should be banned, or is it that we have multiple decks right now in Dragon Link and Infernoble Knights that can search it and pretty much guarantee turn 1, look at the hand and rip a card from it? And so that's another thing I think we need to be worried about, because one, you're getting the information, but also being able to control an opponent's hand is very, very powerful. And it's not like ripping a random card like Omega does, which is already limited, but this is choosing a card in their hand. And so I think this is definitely something to be looked at. Like, I'm not saying it should 100% be banned, same with Destruction Sword, but I wonder what you guys think. Should these be banned? Should these be legal? Should it be legal to have a block dragon? Should it be legal to lock opponents out of the extra deck, or to look at their hand and rip a card with little to no setup? Like with Triple Tack, at least your opponent has to play into it. With a Pointer, at least you have to like draw a specific 3 of, pay 2,000 life points, and then it comes back. Whereas with Smoke Grenade, you can search it, you pay no life points, and the card is gone, pretty much. So we definitely need to discuss whether or not these cards should be allowed in the game. And then the final thing I think Konami should do is to decrease the number of cards on these lists. So bring cards back that are banned, and cards that are maybe limited should be unlimited. And so I think starting with the limited cards, 2 cards that I would love to see come back to 3 would be Spiral Resort and ABC Dragon Buster. And I think Spiral Resort is definitely fair enough to be at 3. I think the restrictions on it are fine. Having to shuffle monsters back into the deck, it isn't really a huge restriction, but I mean, it could help as well. But I do think that Spirals need, or they should be playable. Without Resort, it's very hard to play them because they're so inconsistent. And I think that without Master Plan to be able to search Resort and to be able to search your Spiral Rescues, I do think that Spirals become a lot more fair. I think that Master Plan was really the big problem, because you would be able to like search a rescue, use the rescue, revive Master Plan, search another rescue, link away the Master Plan, revive Master Plan. Like you were able to do way too much with it, because the effects were not, or at least the search effect, the first search effect, the search rescues, was not once per turn, and neither were the rescues. And so Master Plan really did too much, but I think Spiral Resort does just enough to where it's a good card. It protects your cards from being targeted, it searches, it's good, but not, I don't think it should be limited. I think the deck would be not even, I mean, it will be a solid rogue deck at 3. It would be able to, you know, summon your tough and your super agent, pop some cards, quick fix can make some plays, maybe you make some utility wire defense plays, Sleeper's a good card, but it wouldn't be broken like it was. And so I do think that Resort can come back to 3. And with Buster Dragon, I never really quite understood why they limited it in the first place, but having it at 1 just destroys the deck because it puts you in a situation to where you go through all these resources to summon that first one, but then you can't really capitalize on the rest of your ABC engine after that because you have no more Busters. And so I do think that Buster's another card that could come back unless there is like some ridiculous interaction or combo that makes it broken. For that, just let me know, guys, because I don't know. I'm unaware, so I may just be ignorant of the problem here. But if there is one, I'd rather them, hurt that rather than hurting Buster. The other cards I think that could come back are banned, but I think they should come back to maybe 1. And those are these. And you guys are going to think I'm crazy for saying Masterpiece should come back to 1, but we have Dragoon that's out. Can't be targeted, destroyed, has a negate, destroys multiple cards. We have Mega Clops, unaffected by card effects. We have so many good cards right now that I think Masterpiece at 1, just at 1, not at 3, I think would be fine, especially considering that both Dynamite and Diagram are also at 1, so the deck is not going to be very consistent. They'd have to search this with like the Majesty Maiden and then also have back row. The deck is not amazing, so I think Masterpiece would be, I think it would be fine at 1. I think it wouldn't be bad. It would be a good card. It'd be able to steal some games and win some games, but it wouldn't be able to have like an impact on the meta, in my opinion. And I think that's exactly where they should allow rogue decks to be. They should be able to play and win some games, and then that'd be it. But right now, as the deck is, it's unplayable with 1 Diagram and then 1 Dynamite. Like, what does your deck really do? Like, it's very difficult to actually play that deck. And so I think Masterpiece at 1 would be fine. Next, Colossus. Colossus at 1 I think would be good. The OCG has it at 1. It's not really doing too much over there. I think it's just a relatively it's not like broken enough to be banned, in my opinion. It's a good card. It stops your opponent from searching, easy to summon, good, but it doesn't do that much. It's not like insanely broken or anything, and just having it at 1 I think would be enough, because they could just recycle it into their deck, and that would force them to play differently. Like, if they want to abuse Colossus and continually recycle it, fine, but at least they would have to make those plays to do it, rather than them having 3 like it was beforehand and just being able to keep slapping multiples on the board. I think that was the problem, was when you could summon like 2 or 3 Colossus in a turn and then like overlay 2 of them into like a rank 8, have a third one, and then that was wild. But just 1 I think would be fair. Let's see, Harp Horror and Stalio and Broad Bull I think would also be very, very fair cards. All of these are very simple. They're all just engine pieces for their respective archetypes, and nothing that these engines do is really inherently broken. I think all of these were just banned to reduce the power level of them at the time in order to allow newer cards to flourish. I think now that it's been a while, well, Stalio hasn't been banned for that long, but for Harp and Broad Bull, especially Broad Bull, there's been enough time to bring them back and they'd allow their decks to be playable. All of these are playable, but none of them are really good. Like, they're all just like decent playable rogue decks, but having these engine pieces back I think would kind of push them into that tier 3, tier 2 category for all of them, and at least give them a chance. Like with Zodiac, a big problem right now is that none of your Zodiac monsters generate more Zodiac monsters, and so all your ending is on like a 0 attack Raigeki break. Then the opponent can just attack over it, and now you have no more access to your main defense monster unless you Shaka 9 it back and Tiger Mortar material under it, which is difficult. Yes, you already have to do all that, but on top of not even potentially guaranteed to be having another zoo monster to start those plays either, is very, very difficult. And like, you look at Salamangreat, at least they can continuously generate more gazelles to use. Zodiac does not have that option, and so I think that Broad Bull back to 1 would just be fair and bring it in line with the other similar archetypes, like the similar control type decks like Salamangreat, Sky Striker, decks like that are better control decks. I think Broad Bull would allow Zodiac to at least be a control deck. And maybe there's something broken that Broad Bull would be able to search because it is a generic searcher searching Beast Warriors. Maybe there are some broken Beast Warriors that I don't know about that could enable some ridiculous rank 4 spammy combos or something, but I think if that's the case, let's ban those other cards and let Zodiac play. Just let Zodiac play and exist. Please, Konami, we got Dryden back. Just give us a little bit more with Broad Bull. I'd really love that. And then I think I mentioned both of these. Harp Horror, good card, but not ban worthy. Like, is essentially the exact same as like Gear Suit and Nightmare, except it puts a body on board. So you're getting one more +1 within your engine. I think that's fine for Orcus. The Orcus is just 2 kneecaps with their normal summon restrictions. All their starters are normal summons. That's an issue. They have no extenders within the archetype, and then they're also locked into darks. And so I think it's completely fine to have access to Harpoor. I think this does very little to helping them do more than what they already do, but it does make it a little bit easier for them. And I think for that, it just shouldn't be banned. And so these should all come back to 1 in my opinion. But that's pretty much all I have for this ban list. I'd pretty much be happy with those things. And so we're going to ban Linkross, we're going to ban Olion, we are going to bring Buster and Spiral Resort back to 3, bring all of these Masterpiece, Colossus, Harpoor, Stalio, and Broad Bull back to 1, and then we can potentially ban a Smoke Grenade. We could potentially ban Block Drag, or we shouldn't ban Block Dragon. I think that should be semi-limited, yeah, or limited. But potentially ban Smoke Grenade, potentially ban Buster Dragon, Destruction Sword. But I'll leave those up to you guys. Let me know what you guys think about this upcoming ban list, what you think Konami should do to fix the format. Again, let me know what you think about the audio. How does it sound, the quality, the clarity, pitch, or all of those things. Let me know what you think, how this sounds. Is this acceptable or not? I mean, I'll look at the YouTube stats and see how you guys react to this, and I'll try to figure out whether it's the content or if it's the audio or the video that you guys don't like. I mean, these ban list videos on this channel, they never do well anyways, and so I'm not expecting too much here, but I'm curious what you guys think as well. I'd really appreciate any and all feedback, maybe what you would like to see in future videos or other discussion videos, how I can improve this type of video format, because obviously I don't do it very often. Like 80 to 90% of the videos on the channel are either deck profiles, test hands, or combos, and so how I can continue to improve the content on the channel and bring different kinds of videos and make them more interesting is definitely important to me, and I would love feedback on how I can do that. And so I'd really appreciate it, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.